Bailey Armour from First Bet here on site at Pimlico ahead of this weekend's Preakness Stakes. Now, Scott, we have talked back and forth a little bit about the Derby winner, Mystik Dan, coming into the Preakness this weekend. How do you think his Derby performance will affect his Preakness race this Saturday?
Yeah, good to be with you, Bailey. Hopefully, you guys are having fun on site. Really looking forward to the weekend. Of course, the Preakness Stakes headlining Saturday's card, and of course, all the action at Pimlico. And yeah, Mystik Dan proved a lot in that Derby win, obviously, proving that he was capable of beating the best 3-year-olds in the country. But I think there's a couple of kind of things that we learned about Mystik Dan in the race that are most important as we move forward, particularly into Saturday. And the first one is, we always had questions about his pedigree and whether he would be able to get the distance. Even his jockey, Brian Hernandez Jr., had some questions early on in this one's 3-year-old campaign. But he did show, obviously, he did take the shortest way around the racetrack, but he showed that he had the ability to get the 10 furlong distance.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a concern of mine going into the Kentucky Derby, but the way that he just completely blew everyone's concerns out of the water, I'm definitely eating crow on that one.
No doubt about it. A lot of us are eating crow because I saw people use them, and I had him as a B C type, but I didn't really see anybody that picked him on top. So it's not as if anybody was in love with Mystik Dan, at least that I saw.
Yeah, that 18 to 1 price definitely did not show, how much everyone loved him, but I'm sure the people that cashed those tickets definitely did.
Right. Well, I mean, I've got another one that I think might be more important than the distance. Obviously, it's kind of hard to say because if you can't get the distance, the rest of the variables really don't matter. But one thing that we saw from Mystik Dan is he likes to get into a fight because not only did he show that, I think, obviously a 3-horse photo at the finish, but those horses were outside him. I don't know how much he even saw them, throughout the lane. But he showed his toughness when he had to fight through the inside there when they turned for home. And, it was a tight spot. Brian, pushed him through. A lot of horses might not have gone through that hole. And a lot more of them, even if they went through that hole, wouldn't have kept running and fighting to the wire. So to me, that's an incredibly important characteristic that doesn't show up in speed figures, but can be the difference in winning and losing horse races.
Absolutely. He strikes me as a really game horse, and it takes such expert piloting by Brian Hernandez Jr., and especially like what we saw with Rich Strike and Senna Leone a couple of years ago to fight through that final turn traffic. And Mystik Dan really showed that that was not even a factor for him, and he was ready to kind of come to the wire with that grit and with that heart. And hopefully he repeats the same performance on Saturday.
Yeah, it's true. I think a lot, I know you're, know the animals very well, a lot more than I do, from a, perspective of being around them. Obviously, I've been around horses plenty, but in a different way than you. But I think it's something that maybe the public that hasn't been around horses at all, or maybe is a little bit newer to the game, doesn't realize. It's easy to think of these majestic animals as almost like robots. Some of the best ones are robotic in that they run big races every time, but they're living beings, and some of them have a little more heart than others. Some of them want to win a little bit more than others, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, as a fan and as a lifelong horse girl, it's definitely especially fun for me to see horses that really love their job and really like to show up as a true partner with their jockey on race day. And the weather this week today, especially, has been super rainy. The track is super wet, and I know, and we all know that he loves the slop. So I think there's more rain projected in the forecast on Saturday. So I'm pretty keen on Mystik Dan, and I think he definitely could repeat his effort this Saturday in the Preakness.
Yeah, he's likely to be the favorite now with the scratch of Muth, and we're recording this on Wednesday afternoon just for reference on the rain. It looks like it could be on and off all the way leading up to Saturday. I did want to mention one more, kind of piggyback on the Brian Hernandez Jr. stuff. He does give Mystik Dan and give, backers of Mystik Dan confidence. He's ridden for Kenny McPeek forever. He's been on this horse a lot. And with Brian, as much as or more than any jock, and I've gotten to know Brian pretty well over the last several years, he's going to come in mentally prepared. And that showed in the Derby with him, staying along the inside, saving all the ground possible. One thing Brian does is study. He studies who he wants to follow before a race, and he's going to be very well planned. His plans for the Preakness will be very well planned out.
Yeah, absolutely. We love a jockey that watches game film, and we know that Brian Hernandez comes into these races so prepared and ready to execute the goals set by himself and Kenny McPeek. While I, for one, am really looking forward to seeing Mystik Dan run back off that incredible Derby performance this weekend in the Preakness, and then who knows, maybe off Belmont.
Yeah, this is interesting the way it's shaping up. I thought he had a chance to beat Muth. I didn't pick him on top in that respect. I still don't have him picked on top, but I think he's the likeliest winner. And if my bets are going to lose, you know, I'll use Mystik Dan some. He's certainly the horse I want to lose to.
If there's any horse to lose to, it's definitely Mystic Dan. Well, it's always great talking to you, Scott. I feel like I learned something from every interaction we have, and hopefully our followers and our players will learn something as well. As always, make sure you're betting the Preakness and Black Eyed Susan with first bet this Friday and Saturday, and we'll see you in Pimlico.